Hi, I'm Charlie, and this is how I do it. Today, we're going to make homemade pizza, including homemade crust. So, I know that right now, any type of baking is kind of difficult because this is essentially worth its price in gold because it's not available anywhere. Fortunately, I bought some before quarantine and before all of the stores ran out, so I can make homemade pizza dough, which is what we're going to do today. Now, if you do have yeast, pizza dough is very, very simple, but it takes some very specific steps with time in between. So, although for you this is going to be like a 5-10 minute video, for me this is going to be about 2 hours. So the first step is we want to bloom our active yeast, our active dry yeast. Now, if you have instant yeast, you can skip this step. But if you've got active dry yeast like I do, the stuff that you find in most grocery stores, you want to take 2 teaspoons and just sprinkle it over some lukewarm to room temperature water. And yes, I'm right this time, teaspoons. If you watched the guacamole video, got that wrong a couple of times. So we're gonna let this sit and bloom for about 15 minutes. We're gonna come back. It's gonna be a little on the foamy side, and then we'll start making the dough. See you in a few minutes. All right, so it has been about 15 minutes, and as you can see, this water with yeast in it is now nice and frothy and creamy, and it looks kind of gross, I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna start assembling our dough. So if you have a stand mixer, this is the way you should make this. You can mix this by hand, but it's messy, it's sticky, and this does all the work, especially if you have a dough hook. So get your stand mixer. If you don't have one, really just invest in one. You can do everything with this. So we're gonna use 3 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. Now, if you are gluten-free, you can use a gluten-free flour mix. King Arthur makes one. It's the exact same recipe. You would just substitute that instead of the all-purpose flour. If you wanted to use wheat flour, whole wheat flour, you could do that as well. It's going to be a stickier, thicker dough. It's not going to rise nearly as much, which is also okay, but still. So, what's that, half cup? Yeah. So, 3 cups all-purpose flour. Put that aside. You want to use a teaspoon and 1/4 of salt. Table salt is really what you want to use here. You don't want to use kosher salt. It's just way too thick. You would have a very grainy pizza dough, and that just doesn't sound good. Scrape your yeast mixture, which, yeah, is about the consistency of, well, we won't talk about that, but it's thick and gross. Well, I need that back because we need to add somewhere between 7/8 and 1 1/8 cup of water. And this is really eyeball. You don't want it to be, you're not looking at pancake batter here, but you also don't want it to be falling apart and crumbly. So as you mix, you're going to want to pay attention. Let's see if I can do this without throwing powder of flour everywhere. What you're looking for is a ball of smooth, consistent dough. While this is mixing, you also want to add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I just do it by eye. You can skip the step as well. It just leads extra flavor. So I'm going to kick that up. Add some more water, and then wait and see how it looks. So every recipe you find for this is going to have a measurement of water, and that's true with any type of bread making. But the amount of water that I need in my kitchen versus the amount of water that you need in yours is always going to be different. Maybe my flour's a little higher protein, so it needs more water. Maybe it's a little lower. Maybe it just doesn't want to cooperate. But you really need to eyeball it and, you know, just notice what your dough is doing. So just a little bit more water. Now when the dough starts to come together and form a ball, it's going to start, what?
Should I move this closer?
No, not yet. I'm going to show what it looks like. It's going to start pulling away from the side. And then you can crank up the gas, because you want to let the stand mixer do the kneading for you. Unless you're mixing this by hand, like I said, you can mix this by hand, knead it, all of that, but really spend the money, get a stand mixer, well worth the investment. So as you can hear, it's bucking now, and that's because the dough has completely pulled away and formed a ball. So now we're going to just leave that alone. We're going to cover it with some plastic wrap, and we're going to let this sit for about 90 minutes, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit longer. We've been baking all day, so the kitchen is hot as balls right now. So it may only take an hour, but what you want is you want this to about double in size, because this is enough dough to make 2 pizza crusts. So yeah, we'll come back. I'll check on this in an hour. If it's good to go, we'll go. Otherwise, yeah, see you in 90 minutes. All right, so we're back. It's been about 90 minutes, and our dough has way more than doubled in size. So we're gonna go ahead and take this out. Now, like I said, this is 2 pizzas worth of dough. So we're going to get our board scraper, or you can just use a knife if you don't have one of these, and go ahead and set this one aside, deal with it later. So now we're just gonna kind of work this into a circle. Now, the key to this, is to not stick to your mat. So put down a little cornmeal. You can get this at any grocery store. Fortunately, it's not something that you can't find. And you want to just kind of work this. Now, you don't want to roll it. If you roll it, A, your pizza will get really, really flat. And B, you'll lose all of the air that you got from the proofing. And I mean, who wants that? Plus, rolling, you lose the crust. So you just want to kind of let gravity help stretch this out. What we're looking for is about 12 to 14 inches here. This is a pretty good size pizza, and you can work in with your knuckles. You don't want to use your fingertips. If you use your fingertips, you're going to tear, and even like this, you might tear, but that's okay. So you want to keep your edge. We're not making a St. Louis style pizza. I'm not a fan of the pizza that doesn't have crust. Find it too thin. I'm not a big fan of whatever Provel is. It's a processed cheese product. Who the hell knows what that is? Plus, My wife's kind of allergic to it, so we're going for an old-fashioned, original Margherita Pizza here on how I do it tonight. So stretch this out a little bit more, get it round-ish. Now you can buy pizza sauce from a grocery store, or you can make your own. I would put the recipe for this in the comments, but you're just gonna have to wait and watch the sauce episode when I make it. So homemade sauce right on the dough. Kind of spread it out. And we're going with big beefy chunks of mozzarella here. We're not using shredded. We want this to just kind of melt in place because we're making a margherita pizza. We're not making a pepperoni or a supreme or anything like that. Those are great, but you can very easily order those. I haven't found a place yet in St. Louis you can get a good margherita pizza. So we've got the oven preheated. We've got the pizza stone in it. Now I'm going to sprinkle some cornmeal onto the pizza peel so it doesn't stick when you put your pizza in the oven or when you transfer your pizza to the peel like this. Might have been a good idea to sauce and cheese the pizza on the peel, but like I said, there's not a lot of toppings here, so nothing's getting too messy. So come over here, we've got the oven preheated to 550 degrees. Now, there's a lot of you out there, very rarely ever take your oven past 400, but if you want a quick, hot, crusty pizza, you need to get the oven good and hot with your pizza stone in there. And if you don't know this already, pizza stone goes in cold, let it heat up with the oven. So we're going to go ahead and put the pizza in here, and we will be back in about 15 minutes to pull the pizza out. Oh, hey, welcome back. So we've got our pizza. Now the key to a margherita pizza is fresh basil. But if you put it on before you put the pizza in the oven, you're going to get burnt basil. And you know what burnt basil tastes like? When you were a kid, did you ever want a toy really, really bad for Christmas, and then you wake up and that toy's not there? That's what burnt basil tastes like. It tastes like sadness and depression. So put your basil on afterwards, make everybody happy. Ooh, hear that? Put a little piece of basil on that one, because that's what I'm going to eat in a minute. I've grown up eating pizza my entire life. And we did homemade pizza as a kid, and we'd buy the kits. And those of you who are, at least in St. Louis, you know the kits I'm talking about, the Roma's pizza kits, where you get the cracker thin crust and the Provel cheese product and the bright red, nuclear red sauce. And we'd make that every year on New Year's Eve. And without a doubt, every year, I'd make my pizza, I'd stick it in the oven, I'd pull it out of the oven, I'd slice it, and I'd immediately take a bite, and then I wouldn't be able to taste anything the rest of the night. So, I'm going to give this a second. With our margherita pizza, we're going to pair it with a nice local IPA. Even though we're not making a St. Louis style pizza, we're going with 4Hand Incarnation India Pale Ale. So, I know this isn't beer that you can get everywhere, but I also know that the vast majority of you who are watching are my friends and you live in St. Louis and you can go to the grocery store and you can buy this beer. So buy this beer, pair it with this pizza, and just make your life perfect. So here we go. It's still really fucking hot. But it's not burned my taste buds hot. And that is a damn good pizza. It's nice and crispy crust, well done. The sauce is great. That traditional ball mozzarella instead of the what you would normally, the shredded where you just cover the entire pizza. But the key, without a doubt, is that fresh basil. Take another bite. Oh shit, that's good. And the basil's kind of sweet, which is nice. Balances perfectly with the hoppy bitterness of the IPA. So there it is, homemade pizza. You can make this multiple ways. If you can't find yeast and you want to make a sourdough starter, just hit me up. I'll give you the recipe, teach you how to make that. And then you can make a sourdough pizza, which would make you extra, extra fancy and extra, extra, extra. Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, homemade dough, homemade sauce. It just doesn't get any better than that. If you like this video, make sure you hit like, subscribe, ring the bell. That way you'll know when I'm putting out a new video. I'm gonna do better about getting them out once a week-ish, but definitely much more frequently than once a month. We've got several things that we're gonna pair. We're gonna do some steaks, some cocktails. We're gonna make some Moroccan food, some Indian food. Got a whole bunch of stuff planned. So hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on the socials. I am on Twitter at HowIDoIt9, on Instagram at how.I.doit, and I've got a blog, howcpdoesit.com. Have a good night and enjoy your pizza.